Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order and call roll. Got position number 1, Nirja Mathur. I see not here. Position 2, Steve Smith. Mr. Smith.
Oh, here. Let's see if that works.
Yeah. Commissioner Andrew Tessman.
Present.
Commissioner Dave Lambert. I'm sorry, Daryl Lambert. Not here. And then position 5, Commissioner Maruziak here. Commissioner Chris Aliff.
Present.
Commissioner David Goodman.
Here.
Also note we have Councilmember Joe Johnson. Good. Okay, before we excuse, I think we get going and we'll see if anybody else joins before we go ahead to excuse the ones that are not attended. So can I get a motion to approve today's agenda?
Motion.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Seconded.
Okay, so motion by Commissioner Goodman, seconded by Commissioner Tessman to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, with that, agenda is approved. I'll open up for public comments for items that are not on the agenda.
You know, maybe it's just general life experience, but somebody that
I don't see any hands up. Okay,
Hey, Dylan, it's still not working because
done.
you show up as me, and since I have an alternate host link, I can't promote you. So my recommendation, Dylan, you either need to log into the account and join with the direct link from the website, or log out completely and try it that way, I guess. Sorry, continue.
okay, well, I want to make a note that Commissioner Daryl Lambert is joined us. So I heard no public comments, so I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Council liaison report.
All right, greetings, folks. I only have one thing that I think is of note, and that was that the council approved the sidewalk repair and replacement program, which has been on the CIP for a while, and we've all wanted to get it done, but of course the pandemic just did pandemic-related things to it. And but we're finally going to get around to it this year. My understanding from the Parks and Public Works Committee meeting is that they're intending to have most of it done sometime this fall. It's not a promise, but that's just what they told me.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get a lot going. One of the biggest things that's going to continue to be a problem is that there is a shortage of cement. So apparently that is a problem right now, and that's kind of slowing things down. But other than that, we'll be able to get that done. Just a few little details on that. We'll be mostly addressing the areas of the greatest amount of concern. I think there's one spot where kind of near where the former mayor lives that has some cones around it where people have been hurt and stuff. So those are the kinds of things will be addressed first. Much of the first section of Snoqualmie Ridge, commonly called Snoqualmie Ridge 1, is a lot older by a few years, some parts up to 10 years or so, than Snoqualmie Ridge 2. So that area will have more significant work than Snoqualmie Ridge 2. But that said, there will be areas like around where I live where there will be some sidewalk work done. Specifically, what they're going to be working on is replacing any sections that have a vertical offset of 2 inches or more, they're going to actually dig them out and then replace the entire sidewalk. When they do, they're going to cut out all the roots that are in the way and put in root barriers, which I'm not going to pretend like I actually understand how that works, but it should stop the roots from encroaching further. There's also a tree replacement program that is coming where some of the trees that cause the greatest problems will just simply be replaced with trees that won't have those kinds of root issues. But the root barriers should work to stop some of those areas from continuing to have problems. If they're less than 2 inches of offset, but still of concern, then they're going to grind them down. And that's the case over where I live. There aren't any sections that are going to be replaced, but they're going to have a few that are going to be ground down so that it's even again. That is kind of a Band-Aid on it, but the difference in cost between grinding and replacement is about 100%. Yeah, so yeah, it's a huge financial difference. So it is what it is. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, 2 more things on that. The amount of the expenditure is less than was expected for this particular round of sidewalk work. We budgeted over $750,000 for it, but it's going to come in under $600,000 for the contract. So we're going to be saving a bit of money, and if we miss some parts of sidewalks that need to be replaced in this round, we can get them in the next round. Which reminds me of the other thing, which is if you have a section of sidewalk you want to make sure that the city is aware of, I believe that the email to contact would be Joan Quaid, but maybe Mr. Rogers, if you think there's a better person, you can correct me on that. Okay, yeah, so Joan Quaid, and just for the record, her email is jquade@snoqualmie.gov. And I did see Commissioner Lambert's hand, but I may have just addressed that question.
Commissioner Lambert, do you have a question?
Well, I was just wondering, we're still missing sidewalks down here, so.
Yeah, that's all still part of the work plan. That's part of that same problem of the holdup with getting the materials that they need to finish those sidewalks, and it'll be the same thing holding up sidewalk replacements. But as soon as we get the materials, we'll continue working on those.
Okay. I have a question, actually, but let me ask, does any other of the commission have questions? Okay, so is the intent to replace trees that have to be removed?
That is my understanding for a separate project that's not part of this one, but it's something that will, in the long term, stop some of the problems that we've had in some areas. Yeah, there were just some trees, not that I'm an arborist by any means, I'm not going to pretend to be, but my understanding is that some trees may not have been the best choice when they were originally planted, or another problem is that some areas were dug a little bit too shallow when they should have been dug deeper along side streets and sidewalks. And so some trees have roots that are shallower than they should have for that reason. That's just the way that it happens sometimes.
I can add a little more color on the tree one.
Yeah.
Another, in addition to the not quite digging deep enough, that was only part of the problem. The other thing we learned, and we corrected this in Snoqualmie Ridge 2 compared to Snoqualmie Ridge 1, is the soil mix was not good. Because of most of the soil, at least in Snoqualmie Ridge, is glacial till, which may as well be bedrock in some respects. We've come to realize we just need to excavate it all out and replace it with better soil the trees can grow in. So that's one of the reasons why you see in a lot of places the tree roots are just spreading along the surface almost and not going in. And that's also why we're having some of the uplift issues, because the roots just can't get in underneath. So
there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah. So you've seen, if any of you have been over along Stellar Way, that's a project that got completed recently where we had to do that. We went and replaced all the street trees. We excavated everything out. So we're on top of it, but it's going to be a multi-year process to get to work our way through all of that. And so doing some of them with the sidewalk replacement is, trying to add some efficiency there.
Good, good. Anything else, Councilman Johnson? I'm sorry, Councilmember Johnson?
I did not have anything else to bring to your attention.
Any
Thank you.
other questions from the commission? Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night. So moving on, look for a motion to approve Planning Commission meeting minutes from March 7th and April 4th. So I'll break it up. First, motion to approve meetings from March 7th.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So meetings as written for March 7th are approved. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes for April 4th, 2022?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, that was Commissioner Lambert moving and Commissioner Smith seconding. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the meeting minutes for those two planning commission meetings are approved. But at this point, I'm going to do this correct. So please, staff, help me. I'm going to move to the agenda item, which is the public hearing and comprehensive plan docket. And I'd like to conduct the public hearing on the 2021 to 2022 comprehensive plan docket. And I would like to open up at 7:44 p.m. by my watch, the public hearing on this docket for public. Do I see a hand raised for
Mr. Shield, so
Mr. Shield?
get him. Okay, you should be able to unmute.
Go ahead, Mr. Shield.
Okay, thank you. So in previous meetings, I've spoken about the specific recommendations I'd placed on the docket and explained the reasoning for them. The thing I'd like to add to that now is because the staff recommendation is to not address these now, but rather to address these topics when the larger comprehensive plan revision happens in 2 years. And I know that'll be a process leading up to that 2-year point, but my concern is that even though there may not be specific things that are known that may be coming up during those 2 years, we never know what's going to come up. And I know I've heard staff talk about that, like there aren't new areas that could have big development or something like that. But I think it's important to not just kind of let it go for a whole 2 years before it's addressed. And I would recommend that at least on these specific 3 issues that you take the actions now and then let that be part of the larger changes maybe that happen in 2 years, but not to let it go for 2 years when we have basically some deficiencies, I feel, in the comprehensive plan that really should be addressed sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments? Sorry, any other comments on this public hearing? Going once, okay. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing at 7:47 p.m. and open up for Planning Commission discussion. Planning Commission Resolution 2021. So staff, did you want to cover the resolution as written?
Sure, I can do that. So, 1 second here. So I'm scrolling down to it in my agenda packet. So for many things, of course, the Planning Commission would act by motion. For for more significant things like comprehensive plan amendments, it's often helpful for the commission to act via a planning commission resolution. This helps to memorialize the commission's action in a little more clear terms. So, you know, the whereas statements are relatively standard. You know, this talks about GMA, Growth Management Act, excuse me, compliance, how the city's adopted procedures to conform with that. This is reciting some of the procedural issues. You know, there's a public hearing on the calendar on January 18th. The dates the commission reviewed things, the public hearing held tonight, and then the meat of the resolution itself is pretty basic, that, you know, the commission recommends the city council do not adopt the 3 requested amendments, and those 3 would be attached. You know, they're not here, but we would attach the 3 that Mr. Shields submitted. So as with many things, the planning commission is not the final decision maker, and so the commission's in a position where you would need to recommend what to the council adopt, do not adopt, or the amendments. So you have to take some kind of action, and then the council will get to make a final decision when they get it.
No, understand. So with that summary, can I get comments from the commission? I see a hand. Vice Chair Tessman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. For me, I thought obviously we had a good discussion on each of these requests. I think ultimately the compelling point for me was just that you know, the planning for Snoqualmie Ridge as it exists is such that, you know, there's only so much room for growth. I think the point I would stress is smart growth, equitable growth, properly accounting for not only the type of jobs created, but frankly, for the diversity of community that we would like in Snoqualmie. They are essential and it is important. And that's why, you know, when we started out this discussion, I was actually very intrigued by what was proposed and thought that potentially it would be the way to go. I think staff made some compelling arguments concerning just where we are in the planning process, what the reality of development will likely be, certainly in the short term in Snoqualmie. And so while I think it's certainly in our interest to consider the viewpoints expressed by these requests, I agree that it's not the time and place. I think we can do it fruitfully and in a manner satisfactory to all sides of the issue in the standard planning process. So that's kind of how I've come to my position on this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Tessman. I see Commissioner Goodman.
Thank you. This maybe I've just been confused this whole time. I guess I thought my understanding was we were looking at these as not as amendments quite yet, but just as items to decide if we're going to study further. But what I'm seeing here is more about amendments. Am I understanding that correctly or incorrectly?
Yeah, the process is a little, I will admit, Snoqualmie's process is a bit unusual in that regard. Certainly other cities have a more formal docketing process where you get docket requests in, and then there is a discussion decision on docketing itself before you get to discussing any actual amendments. Snoqualmie doesn't specifically provide for that. And
Okay.
so we're left in a somewhat awkward situation where anything that gets applied for essentially automatically gets on the docket. And so to avoid drafting a full amendment that we'd recommend denying anyway, that's kind of why you're seeing the recommendation in front of you without a full amendment package behind it, because of the amount of work it would take, especially when we're looking at denial or recommending denial rather.
Thank you.
Any other, Commissioner Goodman, anything else?
No, I mean, the word docket's always a tricky one to define because it can mean it's a verb and a noun. But anyway, I guess maybe I'm the only one who didn't understand it, but thank you for clarifying.
Commissioner Smith?
I think I was kind of in the same boat there in thinking that we were going to be looking at this more as like a discussion. Would it be something we want to take up as a discussion topic, not kind of jumping right to a conclusion through a formal recommendation, or as has been said, I think they're topics that are worthy of discussion. I completely understand that perhaps timing may not be right. I think timing is probably always tricky. There could very well be something else that consumes our bandwidth 2 years from now. And so if it's staffing resources, limitations like that, I understand it, but I don't think it necessarily should dissuade us from at least taking a look at the issues more closely as a commission and then making a determination. But I know we've heard staff reports on them and heard testimony from the applicant. But again, I think they're worthy topics that warrant our attention. And if not now, hopefully down the road before 2 years.
Given, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Smith?
That was all.
So for guidance from staff, can we adopt the resolution as written with the addition that we want to make this a primary discussion item on how would it be implemented on ongoing commissions, so that we can flesh this out in time for 2024? Because we discussed it at the April 4th meeting, we got into some issues that I believe are bigger than Snoqualmie. I believe that gets county and even statewide to truly address the issues as presented. So rather than try to force them prior to the 2024, which is kind of the thing right here, why don't we instead say, we don't believe the timing is right now to go for an amendment. However, we do wish to have this as an agenda item for additional discussion to set up for the 2024 overhaul. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we can definitely do that. And I think I've said it before as part of, in the staff presentations on this, that the issues raised are worthy of further discussion and exploration. The main issue now is largely one of timing, and with a full comprehensive plan rewrite coming. One thing to remember about the timing on this is that the full update needs to be adopted, which is to say adopted by the city council by the end of 2024. So the planning commission and the city council and staff is going to be working on this pretty extensively over the next 2.5 years. So I wouldn't characterize this as saying we're going to roll merrily along and suddenly get to September 2024 and start working on this and start having these discussions. I think we're going to continue having these discussions over the next 2.5 years pretty continuously. So absolutely, we can keep talking about this, the rest of the year and into 2023 as well. I think that's both warranted and pretty necessary at this point.
So again, open for discussion, but I'm suggesting that we approve, or that we amend the memorandum. We amend the memorandum to say that I'm trying to think how I would word this here.
Well, I might suggest, Chair, that you could leave the resolution as is, because the resolution is dealing quite specifically with the amendment. Well, I should back up. Per the code, we have to take action on the amendments as presented, and there are timing constraints on that. So I might suggest you take action on the resolution as presented, and then you can make a separate motion, or it doesn't even need to be a motion. It can be the will of the planning commission, frankly, to carry on the discussion at future meetings. It may not be at the next meeting, for example, but it could certainly be at future meetings this year, or even this summer. Because we're certainly receptive to that. We obviously have at the moment staff restraints to work on because Dylan and I are it for planners at the moment. But
what we can do though is, well, actually, let me ask Commissioner Smith. Comment?
No, but yeah, my comment was gonna be just to make sure that I appreciate the consideration of amending the just so that we have sort of vocalized, if assuming, of course, others agree, that we've kind of memorialized our concern or wanting to kind of explore these issues further, so that that's not lost in transmission to the council. My fear is they just get they would get it as presented, and it wouldn't have any sort of clarification around the conversation that we've had.
no, I can understand that. So I guess what I would ask at this point is, if the will of the commission is that way, I'd ask for a little bit of time to go word it. Wording things on the fly in front of the commission is tricky at best. So I would suggest that the commission set this one aside for a little bit and move on to the downtown relook while I go draft up some wording.
Okay. Describe the intent. I mean, our intent is to not recommend the amendments at this time. However, very formally say we want to continue discussing these issues in commission.
Right. Yep. The other alternative, which I've suggested for other items before, is you could essentially vote on that with that added to the motion. And then I can work with the chair on exact wording later, so that we can just move on from this now without having to try to come back to it later in this meeting. If that's acceptable to the commission, of course, and to the chair. It's kind of up to you. The time restriction is that you're going to have to take action tonight, because we don't have another meeting in April to work on this.
Yeah, that works for me. And not only our word in the record of this meeting, but obviously you should expect to be seeing that as agenda items that we can continue to discuss. So any objection to that recommendation, which is that we approve this memorandum as is, with the proviso that we'll basically, how do you say it, Jason? Basically have a note in here that we're going to continue to discuss these items to try to drive them into a state that we can include them in the next comprehensive plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Does it require an amendment to the motion, or?
Well, there's no motion on the floor right now. So what I'd recommend is, so you could move to approve Planning Commission Resolution 2022-01 and add another section to the resolution to specify that the Planning Commission desires to continue discussing and considering the requested amendments as part of the major comprehensive plan update, with those continuing discussions through 2022 and into 2023 and 2024.
I like it. Yes.
If somebody can say so moved on that, well.
So moved.
I'll second.
I'm not trying to push you guys into emotion, sorry.
No, thank you for guiding us through.
All in favor?
Convoluted.
You can have further discussion on it if you want.
All right, so just one more time, is we're going to approve the memorandum for the comprehensive plan docket with the amendment that we will be continuing to discuss these items through 2022 into 2023 on how to implement them.
So moved.
Here a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, any opposed? Okay, does that give you,
No, it definitely does. And I'll work on that and I'll get it to Chair either tomorrow or the day after so we can
okay,
finalize this.
okay.
Thank you.
I think that, again, it's a bit of a compromise, doesn't make everybody happy, but I think that's the best way to go. Because these are issues that just don't yield to a short conversation. Okay. Let me get back up to the agenda here. So moving on to the next agenda item, historic downtown relook.
I will get us ready for that one. I'll go ahead and share my screen here in just a sec. Okay. So first off, I want to apologize for the tardiness of the materials for this agenda. This is just a bit behind on getting all the materials to you guys. And so if you didn't see it already, you would have seen an email today at, I believe, 2 o'clock from me that had the updated materials for the downtown relook. Given that we worked through this process many times and everyone that's in this attendance at this meeting has heard and has reviewed all this, I'm not going to go into the spiel about every single piece and parcel of this document, but I will state the changes that have been made. First and foremost, the minor edits, things like extra spaces, capital letters, things like that that I worked through, and I did try to read this again to try to catch them. However, editing is difficult to do as a one-man show, so it's always better to have another set of eyes, and so appreciate that always. But to kind of dig into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the changes, aside from the minor corrections on edits, I did change a lot of the language in here to be more not restrictive is the word I'm looking for. Essentially is locked in or less ambiguous by its ability to be undone based on just the language of the phrasing. So if that's clear, all it is to say is I got rid of the qualifiers to the sentences, as best we can, or in the event of such and such,
Right,
any of
it's
those kinds of
possible,
instances.
right.
Yeah.
Understanding that there might be waivers, but this is a you should do this, not a try really hard.
Exactly. And to kind of walk it through with that, there's not a waiver per se for any sort of avoidances of any of these sections. However, there's a code language section, and if my Zoom screen would let me click on it. Here in the city code, if I were to find a section on variances, which I just scrolled right by when I was listening to Jason talk about his docket standards, there is a section in here that talks about how you can achieve a variance from the code sections, but that the code review is mandatory, and that okay, here I am. So section C here, this is the process that a developer or anyone, an applicant for these types of projects would go through to kind of give themselves a variance on the mandatory requirements that are listed in the code sections that we're working through right now. They apply, that variance applies more widely than just the sections that we're kind of modifying within the entire design review process. But that is all to say that a variance process already exists and it would already apply to this. So given that, all I did was more concretely described each of these and made sure that they had less wiggle room, so to speak. And I tried to also indicate that the situations in which it was, for example, there was a section in here about if it's appropriate to have dual or shared services areas. I think it says here, like when it's reasonable or feasible, I tried to make sure that those moments did not allow for the applicant to decide that it's not feasible, and rather that the planning commission or the director would decide, as a way to better code practice, so to speak, as well. So those are the major changes. You won't see any changes down here at the bottom when you get to definitions. That was pretty straightforward from the last time. So yeah, I will leave it there and just see if there's any, major errors or things to work on or things of that nature.
Yeah, the only things I see where the qualifiers remain, I've been going through this, is the service loading waste enclosures, which, again, thinking of Front Street, I don't think, I think I think that makes sense to have those in there.
Okay. I felt like I had to leave some just by
Right.
just the way that it needed to be phrased to be appropriate.
Okay, any comments from the commissioners? I see one from Commissioner Lambert.
Curiosity, if you go up to number 4 and 5 in the previous section, in section D.
Seating, trash receptacles.
Oh, no, sorry, 5 and 8. I
Trash
thought we were
receptacles,
going
bicycle
to,
racks.
yeah, I thought we were going to remove those two.
So there was a phrase in here, trash receptacles. It was actually, from my notes at least, the removal of the concept of public trash receptacles, because it brought into question whether the Public Works Department would be obligated to take out the trash in that case. So I phrased it as you see here to account for the comments, but if I misunderstood the direction, that's definitely a potential bad. And as for the second one, the bicycle racks, I didn't have that note, but I can remove it. That's an easy one to remove.
I mean, my thought was not to, I don't want another trash receptacle as an amenity because, I guess if you say that they have to empty it every single day or whenever it's full, I don't know. I think there's enough down here that the Public Works put out. So, and then the bike racks was just an old thing because I think there's, I didn't count them recently, but there's like 9 or 12 of them in downtown Snoqualmie.
That's right. I'm starting to remember a bit of this conversation.
You don't remember everything I say, Dylan?
I do try. Half the time I'm too busy making some comment or some joke to write my notes down properly. But I can, so as we kind of were talking last time, one of the directions to go with this is if you have feedback for me that is too extensive for me to just quickly address in this, then I would like to come back and bring the corrected materials. If, however, it's something as easy as a simple strikeout that I can do and you feel comfortable that I won't mess it up, then I can strike it out and send it to council or to community development committee. So it depends on where we get at the end of this conversation, but if that's the direction we want to go, just let me know.
So we're clear on strikeout 8. So what's the plan with 5? Commissioner Lambert, what's your recommendation on 5? Your thought is we have enough that we don't need that detailed at all?
Yeah, I just don't think it's an amenity that I really want, businesses to put out, because then we get into a debate later on about whether or not they're supposed to be emptying them or the Public Works emptying them, or how quickly they're maintaining them, that kind of stuff.
Right, but all trash receptacles would be approved by the Parks and Public Works Director. So, I could see. Anyway, I could see the need where perhaps a new one could be required at some place like the old bank. Yeah, they got stuff there. Now, what does staff think about that, of eliminating trash receptacles altogether?
I'm not fully opposed to it. I would say that the only way I'd be comfortable with it is with that qualifier that's currently in there. Once I reread it, I thought that it certainly needs to be considered within the parameters of what the Parks and Public Works can maintain and believes is an effective use of the downtown. So that's why I thought that that qualifier, while it's, you know, another qualifier, we we're trying to avoid that. I think this one will pretty much say no all the time unless they see a good opportunity. And
Right.
so it's
right.
really just
And-
catching a pretty small opportunity.
And do you want a new business, grandfathers in, say 5 years from now, or whenever, the nice thing about this is they would have to at least think about the trash receptacle and see what's out there and at least think about it. I mean, if we remove it all together, they're just going to assume the city's got it covered. They don't even need to think about it. And that, for that matter, I'm kind of leaning towards leaving this in there, understanding that the Parks and Public Works Director has got to approve it. And if he thinks it's covered, he'll say no. And eliminating number 8. Any other comments on that? Commissioner Lambert?
I think Chris had his hand up.
I'm sorry?
I did
Commissioner
have my
Ayler?
hand up, but then I changed my mind. Commissioner Maruzak brought me around to another line of thinking, so thanks.
I mean, if you guys are really set on leaving it in, that's fine. I see it as a battle point later on.
Yeah.
Is it accurate to paraphrase that? And again, I'm putting words in your mouth, so please correct them if I'm wrong. But like, really, the city should put out the garbage cans because they're going to maintain them.
That is pretty much what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what they're doing right now. So I'm like, why would we allow a business to put in more additional garbage cans as their amenity so that they can get city to, take out the trash for them?
And if they wanted to, they could still go through the process of asking to use that as one of their features here through the appeals process.
Yeah. Yeah. And King Street lot, I mean, gets developed. I want them to think about trash, right? I mean, anyway, yeah. Okay. All features are subject to city approval, yeah. I think it's okay to leave it in. I think there's enough potential development that the conversation, or at least the thought, ought to go through the person. If it's just a redo of the area that we're thinking that already has the trash receptacles, it'll be fine. But if it's the King Street lot, or I don't know, maybe towards the Woodman or something else goes up there, it'd be good for them to think about the trash receptacles and have the public, the city has to approve it. So. So I think we have a break in that, Commissioner Lambert. So it's not, we're not going to put a trash receptacle every 10 feet, which I think was your fear. I think we can control that.
Okay. I mean, I disagree. I think if we've got a business that's putting out a trash receptacle so they can put their trash there for the city to have to empty it every week, like the Public Works Department has the trash receptacles that are sufficient for downtown Snoqualmie. They're at the end of each street. They're in the middle of each street. They're down by the bank or Buckshot Honey. I just don't see it as an amenity that's adding to the beauty and quality of downtown Snoqualmie.
No, I agree. In those areas, I agree. I'm thinking of the new areas, like the King Street lot or other places where there isn't one, that they should be thinking about it.
There is also one down at right by the gift shop, the King Street lot. There's one across the street from the King Street lot. There's
Right.
actually one that's on the King Street lot. We've got enough. There's one across from the bowling alley.
Yeah, I don't disagree that we have enough. Yeah. I would like to leave that in there. I mean, I guess we can, we can certainly vote on that. I'm not, yeah.
There's one right outside of the park next to the King Street lot. There's also ones right out of the Snoqualmie Brewery. Like,
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Any other commissioners want to weigh in?
Can I speak? May I speak?
Please.
So I'm wondering if we can kind of split the difference a little bit here. You know, on some of these items, it says something to the effect of, you know, needs, you know, for the, like, where did it go? You know, number 6, add visual interest to the sidewalk as determined by the director. You know, development director will maintain a list of existing amenities to determine the appropriate number and type. And then at the very end, it says, my thing was all features are subject to city approval. So first of all, I'm wondering what that number 14 means in the context of all that other stuff. And I'm wondering also if we might just want to say for all of these things, you know, you're going to have the community development director can determine, you know, whether whatever is being proposed we already have enough of, or, you know, is not going to fit or whatever. I'm just wondering if we can kind of put all of these things underneath some sort of, you know, somewhat subjective, you know, oversight from the director rather than trying to like regulate it ahead of time, which I think is what we're trying to do. So, you know, in the case of the trash cans, you know, I'd like to be able to give the community development director the power to say, you know, we have enough trash cans, you like pick something else besides a trash can. So I'm wondering if we can't just merge all of these underneath something like that to give the director some more, you know, flexibility to make sure that whatever we're getting out of this is appropriate and not something that we already have too much of.
So I can just, I pointed out the section here that described the community development director's kind of weigh in on the balance and feature. And then I just wanted to pull out that the kind of call out of these numbers is to show desired amenities include, but are not limited to. So it's just like a focus list of good ideas, not necessarily the end all be all of what can exist.
So I mean, I'm fine with that. I guess just want to clarify that for anything that somebody, or for any amenity that an applicant proposes, the development director has the ability to say yay or nay based more or less on his or her, you know, best judgment, his or her best judgment of you know, what's appropriate.
Not to kind of back and forth it, but from my read of this code as it exists, I do believe that would stand.
Yeah, so do I.
So if that's the case, then, you know, I think, I don't know that we have to be so careful about the rest of it. Again, assuming that the director would, you know, be willing to implement that in a responsible way. Although I do see Commissioner Lambert's point that why even bring it up as an amenity, doesn't even really, you know, the trash can doesn't really scream amenity necessarily. So, but so I see that point. But in the case that, you know, there's a you know, a checkpoint along the way, I'm happy with that.
Okay. Commissioner Lambert, I see your hand up.
just to follow that logic and that line of thinking, I amend my comment. I think we should leave number 8 in there as well. There are less bike racks than trash cans, so should stay.
Okay. Have no objection. Makes sense too. Okay. Any other comments on that section? Section, what is that? Section D? Yeah. Any other comments on section D? Okay. Then let's go down to the 17.35.200 section D, service loading waste enclosures. We kind of highlighted that there still are a couple qualifiers, but considering Front Street, some facilities, have two fronts or two backs. There does need to be a little bit of qualifying there, but I do like that we removed a lot of that. So open to the commission. Any comments on these sections for service loading and waste enclosures items? I'm gonna look over here for any hand up. No hand up? Good. Okay, then I'll entertain, let me ask one more time, any more discussion on either of these items?
I like the inclusion of the word odiferous. It's a good one. Better than stinky, I guess, but
Yeah, that's a good thesaurus. Well, then, at this point, I'll entertain a motion to approve the historic downtown relook code amendments. The recommendation as written.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
All, any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Dylan, and current planning commission and previous planning commission members. It's been a long slog to get this outlined. I think this is good work. And I know it always feels like a bit the spaghetti making the sausage, but I think it's good work. And I actually think that anybody who does work on the historic district, storefront or whatever, they will look at this and realize that we're serious about maintaining what we have downtown. So good. Okay. So what's next here?
Councilmember Johnson has a comment.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to congratulate you all on the job well done. Just a very brief note here. My very first planning commission meeting over 2 years ago, almost 2.5 years ago, we approved for this big long list of stuff that the previous planning commission had suggested to go to the community development committee for them to kick it back to us again. So anyway, it's been a very long process, and I just wanted to congratulate you all on the job well done.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Well, good. Well, then we're into other business. So we have parliamentary Robert's Rules of Training on Jurassic Parliament on June 14th, 2022. Staff, do you want to give us a background on that?
Sure. So you all should have gotten an email from the city clerk. I believe, was that last week? Looking from when that was. Yeah, should have all got an email last week about that. And it was a short email from Ms. Estrada, the city clerk, where we've arranged to have a parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order training with Ann McFarland. She has a business called Jurassic Parliament. The city council took this, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. So it's been a little bit, but especially with a lot of new commissioners, a lot of new council members, we felt it was good to do this again, help, it's not just for the chairs and vice chairs, it's really for everybody to understand how the, how the procedures, the parliamentary procedures that is work, so that we can try to have efficiently run meetings. So that's coming up on the 14th of June. It is scheduled to be in person in the city council chambers. We will probably try to set up to have some kind of remote option for those people who need or want that, but I can't, we don't have those details ironed out yet. So we will follow up with those details in the near future, hopefully. So please come if you can. I think it'll be good training for everybody.
Good, good. Okay. Any other comments on that?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 5, items of planning commissioner interest. And I'll do a quick round robin. No particular order, as I've got this on my list here. Commissioner Smith, any items of interest?
The only one I was going to bring up was, I think I may have seen an email, apologies if we missed talking about it at some point, but there's I think the volunteer recognition event is coming up in a week or two. I'm not sure if we've talked about that at all. And I saw an email about it earlier, and then I realized I forgot to get back to city staff on that.
That's a good reminder, because I have managed to forget about that myself. Let me see here. That is coming up. Got it. Sorry. It's telling me I can add time zones. I'm looking to see when that event is supposed to be. I may not even have it on my calendar because I'm not actually invited.
I see it. It's on 27th.
Thank you.
Actually, Sigillo Cellars, so we go out and count trash cans if we're really excited about it. There's a joke, a little inside joke.
Yeah. So you should have seen an email from Nicole Wiebe with the city for that event. It'll be held at Sigillo Cellars. I think we're planning on ice cream and things like that for it. This is longer serving members may recall that Jody Warren, who used to organize this event, used to host it up at the TPC as more of a dinner event. And then we didn't host it the last couple of years because of COVID. So now that it's coming back, Jody's obviously retired, and we're looking to get this going again in a little different way. So hopefully you all got the invite and you can show up. And if you can't, we totally understand.
And will council and the relatively new mayor be there?
Good question. I don't know. I don't believe if there's any council there, it would only be, one or two of them, most likely. I think the mayor will likely be there. I don't know for certain.
Okay. I was at one in years past. I don't know. Anyway, and I think Commissioner Smith maybe was. But anyway, it was interesting, and it was kind of fun. So I recommend it if you all are available to go do that. Yeah, I would go. Sigillo Cellars on the 27th.
I think there might be some sort of weird rule about how long you've been a member of, whatever committee or board, advisory board. But so if you didn't get it, that's probably why. There's some sort of rule. I can't remember. There's too many things going on, and Nicole Wiebe sent it out. But if that's probably why, if you're wondering why.
Okay.
Good for me.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, any other item, awkward or otherwise?
Give me a moment. I'll think of something awkward, but no, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Again, no particular order. Vice Chair Tessman.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Aliff.
Nothing this week. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lambert.
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Goodman.
Only to say that I took the Jurassic Parliament course a couple years ago, and if you are into both parliamentary procedure and dinosaurs, you are not going to want to miss that one.
Good. Anything else? Okay.
That's all. Thanks.
And then for me, and I know that there was a long email about it, and I just wanted to ask staff regarding the in-person meetings as we roll into summer. It seems like the thought is we're going to roll into some hybrid solution rather than just to throw a switch and we're going to be in person. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, right? What we're focusing on right now is the Council Finance and Administration Committee has had a couple of discussions recently about this. And it was on the council agenda last week, but they ultimately sent it back to Finance and Administration for further discussion. There's several sticking points, if you want to call them that, but it's really just things the council needs to consider. The main one being there is a cost involved because we need additional IT support to make a hybrid meeting happen. In-person meetings are relatively straightforward, solely in person, and Zoom meetings are relatively straightforward. But adding the hybrid component and making it function properly with cameras and Zoom integration and all that stuff requires some kind of IT staff to help out. That's not budgeted. So that's I think the main point. Beyond that, there are other logistical and just kind of how it would work issues that are being worked through. Some of which just involve when the meetings would start and things like that.
So what groups are in person now?
No, there are no meetings in person right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Or rather, I should back up and say there's a desire to get the city council into a hybrid meeting format sooner than later, but as the issues I just described are what is being worked on.
Oh, okay.
Once we get the council back into a hybrid, then we pivot and start looking at both the council committees and the boards and commissions. But like I said, there are budgetary and staffing and cost issues that we need to work on related to that. Okay. So I don't know what the outcome is going to end up being on all that. So stay tuned. That there are some in-person meetings happening within the city. For example, the city leadership team meeting is back to in-person. We were doing Zoom for a long time. So, every Tuesday morning, I get to sit there with all the other department directors and the city administrator and the mayor in council chambers. But, it's meetings like that are in person.
Is the government proclamation at the beginning of our minutes, proclamation 20-28, is that still valid?
Yeah, it's still in effect. The last update to that proclamation, they went through they went through multiple iterations of it, but the last iteration is essentially an indefinite one that has some additional guardrails on it, but it's still in effect. So for the moment, we're still operating on that. There were some changes to the Open Public Meetings Act passed by the legislature, but ultimately they don't affect how we're running this meeting at the moment.
Okay. I mean, there is some convenience, but I do miss the in-person meetings.
Oh, yeah, and we absolutely understand that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, right? I remember thinking back to years ago how if only we could do meetings online or some other way, I'm sure we'd get more participation from the public. And I'm not sure we've really seen that much more participation than pre-pandemic, unfortunately.
No, I would agree. I think we get, boy, there were some public meetings where it was standing room only. And I don't think you get near that online. So.
Yeah, for online, you have to be paying attention to the attendee list is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's a very, we had the SEPA appeal hearing for the Millsite EIS 2 weeks ago. And it took all week, but it was on Zoom. And so it's a very different experience from what that kind of hearing would have been pre-COVID, where you're sitting in council chambers and everybody's there. And the only way we know people are watching is we're looking at the attendee list saying, oh, who's there, who's paying attention to it.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all I had. We'll stay tuned as the council, I guess, is the vanguard on whether we go hybrid or not. Any items from staff at this point for upcoming schedule?
Let's see here. I don't have my notes in front of me. Dylan, did we have any? We didn't have any upcoming design review items. Or no?
I don't have any guaranteed that are here, but I do have some that are definitely in the works. I can't lock in whether it's gonna be next time or into the future.
Okay. Yeah, there's a commercial project which is on Railroad Avenue down toward Meadowbrook, which is in process, but not, as of when Dylan and I talked this morning, not ready for a meeting yet. That one might be ready for the next meeting, but it's hard to tell. And we have another one which is over on Falls Avenue between River and Newton, which is also in a similar place. You know, it's coming, but it's not ready for review yet. So those are kind of the immediate coming attractions. I think we have don't we have a sign?
Yeah, we probably are gonna have two signs. The Wild Hair Antiques was recently sold and repurchased. They're maintaining the name. I think they're maybe adding a little extra, but they're gonna be coming with a sign at some point soonish. And then, you know, there's always sign talk in the downtown merchants. So I do believe there's at least another one that's probably hot on its heels.
So that's kind of the lay of the land on design review items that are upcoming. Beyond that, we do have some code amendments that we're working on behind the scenes that we're going to try to get to the commission in the near future. So stay tuned on that.
Okay,
But those code amendments don't have a schedule attached to them yet,
okay,
other than we want to get them done this year.
okay. Fair enough. All right, then. As we're at the end of the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.